Take away many of our rights to choose the food that we eat, free from GMOs, for example. Maybe even vaccinations or the water we drink. All of these rights are in danger of being stealthily eaten away by such agreements. And also fracking, for example, being quietly, stealthily made legal by our own government in the United Kingdom. And this kind of stealthy, covert activity by vested interests, all sharing their knowledge and of how to maintain their agenda. This is very much in agreement with the negative side of two. And we have to watch out for this, because it's not all sweetness and light in this new century. I'll just come to you in a moment. Yeah. So it is about, in a positive sense, it's about discovering personal freedom, but without harm to others, without taking away people's rights to grow their own food or have access to herbal medicines and not have it stamped out by the pharmaceutical companies. This is very, very important. There shouldn't be excess of self-interest by transnational corporations. Yeah? And this is something that's got to be addressed by the human race. We don't want a one world government where all these rights will be taken away, because it is not in the interest of the people. And what we need is integrated and open systems where everybody benefits. Is it possible? Is globalization possible, but not a global dictatorship? So one of the free-thinking ecologists of our time has said we can accomplish this through a collective movement of civil society that supersedes the current structure of nation governments and the corporate military-industrial complex. The transition is from a paradigm of competition and domination to one of symbiosis and cooperation, from greed to altruism. It begins with the realization of our shared responsibility for the future of the earth and our inherent unity with each other and with all of life. And that goes with the final scene in Kubrick's vision of the reborn mankind, looking down at this one planet, this fragile, isolated planet in space, which is ours, and all of us on it have this duty to look after it and each other. And this is also the turquoise mean, the global view, the focus on the good of all living entities as integrated systems, self as part of a larger, conscious, spiritual whole that also serves self.
Sounds we might turn into a bee, like a colony of bees.
Perhaps a very wonderful way of seeing everything and everyone cooperating. I'll leave the final word with the Maitreya, supposedly the world teacher, a very spiritual manifestation of who or what, but the divine perhaps. And he said, a new world is in the making and requires the involvement of all. Long gone are the days of silent submission to autocratic rule. Instead, the peoples everywhere are on the march, demonstrating their will and demanding their democratic rights. Competition, violence, war, all those aspects of the one millennium, starvation amid plenty, greed and separation, these will all fade into the memory. To replace these sorrows will emerge blessed cooperation, which is the energy we are in now. Together we shall build a new world. We will truly depend on each other. Who's that?
Hello. Can I say something? From the real astrological point of view of astrological eras, the last 2,000 years has been the age of Pisces, but the age of Aquarius has been formed at the end of the age of Pisces, and all the industrial development and everything, the science and everything of the last 200 years is a foreshadowing of the age of Aquarius, which is going to start properly in 2019. Now, the start of the age of Pisces was extremely mystical, like the sign Pisces. All the Christian monks, priests, saints, and everything that went on into the medieval ages Then that began to break down with the intrusion of the age of Aquarius, which started about 200 years ago. And all the signs, it's the difference between the sign Pisces and the sign Aquarius. Pisces is a water sign, mystical. Aquarius is an air sign, scientific and mental and intellectual. So that also, I'm not saying you're wrong in your analysis, but there is also the real astrological influence of the astrological ages. Now, I'm not a proper astrologer, but I can see that these different ages are certainly applying, for the last 2,000 years. And now, the end of every era can bring about disasters. And we could have a right disaster now, between now and 2019, the end of the world. We're in it now, and if we don't pray, we're going to have massive disasters. The climate is going mad, as you can see, and if people don't do something about it, the climate will get worse and worse and worse. We now have the possibility of a major war in Europe. John Kerry yesterday was talking about giving serious weaponry to the fascists in Western Ukraine. Now this is really serious, and if something isn't done, we could have a massive European war.
It is. Can I interrupt? It is serious, but we're not going to have a war. Okay?
No.
The one vibration, all that stupid business about war and fighting and conflict and struggling for power overtly cannot continue under the two vibration.
Okay, we will see.
We will see. But thank you very much for bringing our attention to astrological cycles, because astrology is a study of cycles just the same as numerology, and should operate in parallel. Yeah, to give us a different aspect of the same reality. And I think what you say is true, that we will see the age of Pisces coming to an end, being replaced by the more spiritual, mental, intellectual age of Aquarius. Thank you. Yeah.
I think that there is a war at the moment that's taking place, and it's a war on the mind, and hearts and minds in that sense. And unless we start to recognise the symptoms of that, I think this situation that this gentleman is talking about increases exponentially, and it can come as a bit of a surprise because of the angle and trajectory by which it's coming at. Whereas there's something about the covert, in the same way you can have a wood termite that can be eating out the foundations and the structure of the building, but you're not even aware of it happening. So I'm saying, in terms of the awareness of the importance of our connectedness and our collectiveness is so important now,
Right.
because this whole the whole infrastructure can be bypassed by covert actions.
Right. Okay. Our duty is to continue the good that the revolutionary century of the mind put into place. Yeah. And there was a tremendous amount of good. There was a great deal more awareness of humanitarianism, of loving each other, regardless of race and class and
build on that.
nation. And so
We're actually in Bloomsbury here, and the Bloomsbury set was a hugely influential, if you like, seedbed of ideas. Now we're seeing, for example, gay marriage has been formally institutionalised, very, very recently. We wouldn't have had that without the Bloomsbury set. In the last century.
So eradication of discrimination against people regardless of their sexuality, of their religion, and so on.
The realisation of equality, particularly of women.
And against women.
I was actually thinking, well, perhaps this was your analysis of all the various middle stages seemed to be really sort of very optimistically looking at it perhaps through the male spectacles, to be honest, because I don't think women really got much of a look in until the 20th century.
Well, that process will continue. It's going to be developed during this 2000th century. Yeah.
The same people who promote abortion promote the gay agenda, not because they're humanitarian, but because they want depopulation. Gay people don't reproduce, so they don't want to spread it, including the vaccines messing up with your hormones.
John's got two. They've got two children.
Anyway, just a thought.
Right, well, we have no more questions, so I'm happy to...
You didn't mention anything about the tribalism, which could have gone into tribalism, the breaking up of the tribe, the breaking up of all the tribes in Germany, bringing it to a country, and then the breaking up of the family, and then the breaking up of any groups. In fact, it's probably be illegal to have a meeting like this in a few years. And then the breaking up of like ordinary friendships, people talking on mobile phones, not even talking to the person next to them, people going home and not socialising, just thinking they can socialise through a machine. And people, and now, last week, a guy's got a chip put in his hand. We're all being separated and we're all asleep.
We are, and this is important, very important point you're making there. Did you know, for instance, in Spain they passed a law where you can no longer photograph the police or videotape the police? So it's these I agree with you. The positiveness comes when we begin to understand the connectedness, how we have to realise that we are now connected. So whilst they're busy overbalancing that way, they're potentially putting the language to us to start.
This is going to happen. I'm
that
sorry.
we are.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that it's going to happen, but it's not. The way that it has a greater chance of having its true manifestation, because the creative and
There is going to be covert pernicious activity happening behind the scenes in the corridors of power and in the elite boardrooms and Bilderberg meetings and so on. Of course, that's their job, is to maintain power, to maintain themselves rich and in control. That's what they do.
So
And but they can't do that openly anymore, and they're going to have to depend on the will of the people.
Right, but how they do it, for instance, I don't know what people think about the overt collapsing of the two buildings right in front of my face, which is defying the scientific process to the point of being absurd.
Yeah.
But more and more people are finding themselves wanting to believe that it did happen in the way that it's been suggested. And this is the issue, is how much we are, how we go to...
They have control of the media, so they control people's minds. But how much they can control, it will be opened into negotiation. How much they can continue to fool, to deceive, to trick the people.
How much we want to...
And what it's for. Is it for themselves to dominate? Because if it is, they will lose.
Yes, I agree with you in the long run, but this is only to us being aware, as I said, of the process and our involvement and our complicity in the process through the consumption need, as it were.
Yeah, we all have to wake up, and we will.
And how we wake up is understanding the language, is what I'm saying. The language is this kind of thing, being aware. It's not just numerology, for instance. I'm saying in terms of numerology, if you go right from the first conditions, set up the first conditions, it's almost inevitable that you're going to have this pattern of this transition of these transitional markers. So to that degree, numbers helps, but it's almost inevitable that process, once you have the first condition, all the second conditions right through, even in terms of it repeating itself. Right. So it's important that we're mindful of the human element that connects us, and then using the numerology as a way of reinforcing that connectedness. But the language of us really...
Anything can happen. We haven't started the numerology yet. The next 9th century cycle hasn't started. We've got the chance now to just experiment, to just be playful, to just relax, and see which way partnership, cooperation and sharing wants to take us. It could take us towards even more invidious and stealthy and vicious activity behind the scenes. Yeah? Or it could be much more benevolent than that.
I think it's urgent now, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. If we fall into the trouble thinking that this is so early that we can sit back, I think this is how the corrosive...
I don't see a need to panic or to worry.
No, never. It's never a need to panic, because that disorientates.
If we just relax and we depend on each other, not depend on each other, but trust each other, that everybody is waking up. Some of us are waking up faster than others. People in this room, perhaps, are a lot more knowledgeable and a lot more aware of some of the higher qualities that can come with the more advanced memes, the yellow and turquoise memes. But we're talking about, in this lecture, I'm talking about the population as a whole, the human race.
So am I, because so is the centralised process.
And gradually it will spread. You know, enlightenment will spread. It's got, you know, I feel it's the only
Do you
way.
believe this will just happen naturally, regardless of us?
I believe it's a
actually
process of
evolving?
evolution rather than revolution, and it is therefore going to happen naturally.
All right, Clemens.
Hi.
I get a feeling of quite the opposite, because you're saying that the two, from memory, the two was the lower activity. The one was very strong. First
One is the initial, and two is the developmental.
two is more of a repose,